Welcome back to the story room. I have an exciting gypsy folk tale for you today called Baldpate. Once upon a time, in long ago days, there was a man who built a galleon. He manned her, and he would go from the White Sea to the Black Sea. One day he landed at a village to take in water, and he saw 4 or 5 boys playing. One of them was bald. He called him. "Where's the water?" he asked Baldpate to show him. He took in the water. Once the ship was all replenished, the sailor turned to the bald little boy and said, "Wilt thou come with me?" The boy said, "I will, but I've a mother." The man said, "Let's go see your mother." And they went to see her. The sailor asked, "Will you give me this boy? He is quite clever, and I could use him on my ship." After a moment's thought, the mother said, "I will." Now, being a fair man, the sailor captain paid a month's wages and took the lad. They weighed anchor and came to another larger village, where they landed to take in water. Now it just so happened on that same day the king's son went out for a walk, and he saw a dervish with a girl's portrait for sale. The king's son bought it and felt it was very lovely. The girl's father had been working at it for 7 years. The king's son set the portrait on a fountain, thinking, "Some of those who come to drink water will say, 'I've seen that girl.'" It just so happened then the captain came ashore. He took in water and lifted up his eyes and saw the portrait. What a beauty! He went back aboard and said to his crew, "There's a beauty yonder. I've never seen her like." Now, hearing how his captain raved about the beauty on the shore, Baldpate thought to himself, "I'm going to go see." And so he went. But the moment he saw the portrait, he burst out laughing. "It's the dervish's daughter. How did they come by her?" Now, hardly had he said those words when he felt seized from behind, and the king's soldiers brought him to the palace. Now, Baldpate lost his head the moment they had seized him, but 2 days later they came to him and asked, "This girl, do you know her?" Confused, Baldpate said, "Know her? Why, of course I do. We were brought up together." And the king's men asked, "If they bring you before the king, fear not." So Baldpate came before the king, and the king asked, "This girl, do you know her, my lad?" Caught between terror and curiosity, Baldpate once again repeated, "I do. We grew up together." And the king asked, "Will you bring her here?" Baldpate hesitated, but said, "I will. If you build me a gilded galleon, give me 20 musicians, let me take your son with me, and let no one gainsay whatever I do, I will go. I will take 7 years, and then I will come back, and I will have the girl." Now the galleon was duly built, and the ship was filled with bread and water for 7 years, and the group set out. They went to the maiden's country. At the break of day, Baldpate brought the galleon near the maiden's house. The maiden's house was close to the sea, you see, and Baldpate said, "I'll go up upon deck for a tone. Don't any of you show yourselves." And he went up and he paced the deck. Now, when the dervish's daughter arose from her sleep that day, the sun struck on the galleon. It struck too on the house. The girl went out, and rubbing her eyes, and saw a man pacing up and down. She bowed forward and saw Baldpate, and she knew him, and thought, "What wants he here?" Overwhelmed with curiosity, she called down, "What seek you here?" Baldpate answered, "I've come for you, come to see you. It's so many years since I've seen you. Come aboard, and, by the way, your father, where's he gone to?" "Oh, alas," the girl answered, "don't you know that my father has been painting my portrait, and he's gone to sell it? I'm expecting him these last few days, and he will be so sad to have missed you." Suppressing a smile, Baldpate said, "Come here, come with me, and let's have a little talk." The girl quickly went to dress, and Baldpate went to his crew. "Hide yourselves, and don't let a soul be seen. The moment I get her into the cabin, do you cut the ropes. I shall keep her busy talking." Now everything worked just as Baldpate had planned. The girl came into the cabin and they seated themselves. They talked, and the galleon got under way. He thought about the king's son and brought him in. "Who's this?" the girl said. "I am off." "Ah," Baldpate said, "are you daft, my sister? Sit, sit, let's have some sweetmeats." He gave her some, and they intoxicated the girl. Seeing the girl had calmed, but not calm enough, he said, a little music will play to you," said Baldpate. He went and brought the musicians, and they began to play. The girl said, "I'm up, I'm off, my father is coming, and I must be at home to meet him." "Oh, don't be such a spoil-sport," Baldpate said. "Sit down a bit and let them play to you." And they played their music, and the girl heard the music, not the departure of the galleon. Finally, though, the girl could take it no more. "I'm off," she said to Baldpate. But when she went on deck, she saw where her home was. "Oh, my brother, what have you done to me?" she cried. The girl wept and she wailed, and she said, "What shall I do? Shall I fling myself into the sea?" But no, the king's son took her hand and led her to sit down by him. Plenty of music and food and drink. Later, Baldpate sat aloft by himself because he was the captain, and he watched as the girl and the king's son ate and drank and he stirred not from his post. Now 2 or 3 days passed in this way before they landed. At the break of dawn 3 birds perched on the galleon. No one was near him. The birds began talking. "O bird, what is it, O bird? The dervish's daughter eats, drinks with the son of the king, and she knows not what will befall her now." And the birds were really quite clever. As Baldpate sat and listened, they said, "As soon as the boat arrives, a little boat will come and take the pair off. The boat will upset, and the dervish's daughter and the king's son will be drowned, and whoever hears it and tells will be turned into stone and on his knees." Baldpate listened closely, and tears came to his eyes as he sat alone, thinking over all that the birds had said. Now it so happened that early the next morning the birds came back again and began talking together. O bird, what is it, O bird? The dervish's daughter and the king's son eat, drink, they know not what will befall them. As soon as they land, as soon as they enter the gate will tumble down, it will crush them and kill them, and whoever hears it and tells will be turned into stone. Hearing once more the horrors that the birds spoke of, Baldpate sat on his deck, trembling with grief. But yet one more time day broke, and the birds came back. O bird, what is it, O bird? The dervish's daughter eats and drinks, and she knows not what will befall her. "What will?" the other birds chirped. "The marriage night a 7-headed dragon will come forth, and he will devour the king's son and the dervish's daughter, and whoever hears it and tells them will be turned into stone to the head." Now Baldpate suddenly sat back on his heels, thinking over all that the birds had said, and he thought to himself, "Why, I shall take care of this. I simply shan't let any boats come." And he arose and came opposite the palace, and he saw some boats coming to take off the moat. Baldpate screamed, "I want no birds," and instead he spread his sails, and the galleon bucked. The galleon went ahead, and one and all looked on as they thought, "Why, he will strand the galleon on the beach." "Let him be," the king said. "Let him strand her if that is his wish." And that's just what Baldpate did. He stranded his galleon, and then he said to the king, "When I started to fetch this girl, did I not tell you, you must let me do as I would, that no one must interfere?" He tugged the girl's hand and took the girl and the prince, and they came to the gate. "Pull it down!" yelled Baldpate. Flabbergasted, the crowd at the gate asked, "Pull it down, but why?" Baldpate simply answered, "Did I not tell you no one must interfere?" With a shrug, the crowd set to and pulled down the gate. They went up, sat down, ate, drank, laughed, and talked. Now even with 2 of the birds' horrible prophecies overcome, their failure to come true, still worry not at Baldpate. When night fell, he thought, "They will bed the pair. Where you sleep, I will sleep," he said. "The bridegroom and the bridegroom will sleep there." Everyone said, "But you can't." Ignoring the disclaimers, Baldpate said, "What is our bargain? Thou knowest it. You know you do." And so the trio went and laid down. But Baldpate didn't lay alone. Oh no, he had his sword, and he covered his head. At midnight he heard a dragon coming, and he drew his sword, and he cut off its heads, and he put them beneath the pillow. The king's son awoke and saw the sword in Baldpate's hand and cried, "Baldpate, will you kill us?" Hearing his son call out, the king rushed into the room and asked, "What made you call out, my son?" The prince answered, Baldpate plans to kill us." The soldiers took and bound Baldpate's arms. When day broke, the king was there to ask Baldpate, "Why have you acted thus? 7 years you have gone, you have journeyed and brought the maiden, and now you have risen to slay them?" Baldpate said, I went to fetch the dervish's daughter. I was sitting alone in the galleon, and your son was eating and drinking with the maiden. But one morning 3 birds came. They began talking. O bird, what is it, O bird? The dervish's daughter eats and drinks with the son of the king. She knows not what will befall her, and whoever hears it and tells it will be turned into stone to his knees. No one but I was there, and no one but I heard it. Now, as soon as Baldpate had said these words, he was turned into stone all the way to his knees, and the king, seeing this, said, "Prithee, my lad, say no more, please say no more." "But I will," Baldpate answered, and went on to tell at the gate, and he was turned into stone to his back. And then he told of the 3rd time the birds came and talked together again, and how he heard. That was why he wished to sleep with them. A 7-headed dragon will come forth, and he will devour them. And you, believe it or not, look under the pillow. Now, at hearing that, the king and all his soldiers rushed to the chamber, and they saw the heads just as Baldpate had told them. "It was I who killed him. Your son saw the sword in my hand and thought I would kill him instead. I could not tell him the truth." And immediately Baldpate was turned into stone to his head. They made a tomb for poor Baldpate. Overcome with guilt at having misjudged a man such as Baldpate, the king's son arose and took to the road. He departed, saying, 7 years he has wandered for me. I am going to wander 7 years for him. Now the king's son went walking, and in a certain place he came to some water, and he drank of it. He laid down, and Baldpate came to him in a dream. "Take a little earth from here and go and sprinkle it on the tomb," he said. "I will rise from the stone." Now even with dreams such as that, the king's son slept and slept. Finally, though, he did awake, and what would he do but take some of the earth and go to Baldpate's tomb? He sprinkled the earth on it, and Baldpate arose. "How sound I've been sleeping," he said. Much relieved at seeing Baldpate seemingly no worse for the wear, said, "7 years hast thou wandered for me, and 7 years I have wandered for thee." And then he took Baldpate's hand, brought him to the palace, and made him one of the great ones, who shall forever be honored in history.